that technology is intended to perform. You have to do it in a way that provides total protection, security and privacy and whatever other functionality you want. And I'm just going to run through very quickly, how is this possible, you might be saying. It is so possible because you can do this in a variety of ways. We're going to start with, we're going to be hearing from Jeff Jonas. I'm not going to preview what he's going to say because it's just too great. And then we're going to be hearing from David Hoffman, who's going to be telling us about laptop anti-theft protection right here in the here and now. So whenever I say we need to embed privacy into design, I start with right now. What do we need right now? Laptops, they're giving away our information all the time because very few of the laptops containing personal information are encrypted or de-identified. So this is essential. Then we go, I'm not doing this in the right order, but I turn my mind to electronic health records, e-health, the data flow in terms of health information itself. And people actually think that privacy is an impediment to this. Last month, about maybe it was 2 months ago, I read an article in Computer World. Jay Klein was the author, and he was lauding EHRs, how you have to have EHRs and personal health records, and unfortunately privacy is an impediment, bad. So I read this, and this is a promise I make to you. Every time I read something like this, I write a letter. It drives my staff crazy. But I immediately try to respond because we have to, see what we have to do, we have to sell privacy, the whole positive sum manner. That privacy can be built in with this other, whatever it is you want to do. So I feel it is my responsibility, my job, anytime I encounter this, to inform that person that no, you can have it both. So I wrote him, but I'm very respectful. I wrote, I think, a nice letter, and I contradicted what he said as pleasantly as I could, and I presented the positive sum theme. Amazingly, and this is what is so awesome, you might think, oh, you're writing a letter which is contrary to the view they're expressing, they're not going to like you. They write back. So I got an email back from him yesterday, and he said, thank you for your letter. I hadn't thought of it that way. He actually said, I've changed the way I'm looking at it. We can do this in a positive sum way. Who knew? Thank you for pointing it out. And would you become an adjunct member of, he is on some member of a working group or legislative committee in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, and he asked me to be an adjunct member. I said, sure. So you always have to say yes. When someone asks you to do this, you say yes. And so, here was an example. I did the same thing with, I think it was a James Baker who wrote the Numerati, this really neat book about data mining. And, but I didn't agree with everything he said because I wanted to point out the risks associated with data mining, but how they could be addressed. So he wrote me back, and he was actually not offended, even though I wrote a letter to the editor because it appeared in the New York Times. He wrote back, and he said, I agree with you. How can we work together? See, if you put the message out there, and I think that's increasingly what we must do, we can't just speak to all of us here who, thank God, know about this and grasp its significance and importance. We have to sell this big time to the rest of the world. And that is what I see as our goal. So health research, you're going to be hearing from Dr. Khaled El-Imam. I'm so glad he's here because I read an article, there was an editorial once again, in a newspaper saying privacy concerns are slowing health research. Privacy is bad. It's an impediment. No, it's not. Of course, it could be. We have to be realistic. How can we address this? Well, we can address it, and you're going to hear from Khaled about how we can address it in a technological way that embeds protections. Surveillance cameras. People think, oh, video surveillance, privacy, never the twain shall meet. Yes, they can. What do you do? We have wonderful U of T researcher who's in the audience, and he is here with us, Carl Martin, today. And his technology is patent pending at the University of Toronto. It'll be coming out soon. We referenced it in the report that we did last year on video surveillance cameras on the TTC. It is amazing technology, secure visual object coding, so that imagine you have a video surveillance camera on me. All you would see in this footage is the background. You might see that there might be an indentation of an individual who's in the foreground, but you're not going to know what it is. You're not going to know what it is unless you have the key. How do you get the key? Well, in our system, it's really hard to get the key. In order to decrypt that, you need 2 signatures, limited number of sign-offs. One of them in Toronto has to be the police chief, the head of our police services. Now, I don't know if any of you know the police chief. I do. And if he signs off on something or his designate, this is as good as a warrant. It's probably better than a warrant because he is very, very tough. Plus, you need a second signature. So anything, surveillance, biometrics, you would think biometrics, yeah, privacy invasive. Absolutely. But you can embed privacy into the design. We've talked a great deal about biometric encryption, which is the strongest way of using a biometric that benefits a positive identification, a verification, but it will only allow it to be used for this particular purpose that it was intended for. It is a unique, innovative way of doing biometrics, and there are several companies now, Philips out of the Netherlands, Per Se out of Israel. You have several companies. You're going to be hearing about a very innovative approach to using biometric encryption by the OLG here today. So you can do surveillance, biometrics. You can do this in a privacy protective way, because what I have looked at, I've been doing this about 20 years now, it's really hard to tell people, stop doing that. I want to get rid of all the cameras. I want to get rid of biometrics. It looks like it's going in the opposite direction. But that doesn't mean doom and gloom. What it means is we have to get in there. We have to get into their faces and say, I understand why you have to do this, but I need you to do it in a privacy protective way. And then we have to show them how to do it, because it's not good enough to say just do it that way and trust that they're going to do it like that. And I'm going to quickly just touch on two other areas because I know my time is up, but you know, I can keep talking for 2 minutes. Social networking. You would think social networking, online social networking, how can you have that and privacy? They seem like an oxymoron. One is to put information out, one is to keep it in. Well, you have a choice. You can exercise that choice. You can do it in a privacy protective way. You can have social networking and have privacy. To the choice, it's your choice. You have to make the decision. We have Chris Kelly, Chief Privacy Officer, here to talk about that. Identity management. Dr. Stefan Brands is here, and he is amazing from Microsoft. He's going to tell you about ways that you can do privacy protective identity management. RFIDs, radio frequency identifiers. We worked with HP last year. Victor Garcia is here. He'll be speaking about another topic. But we joined forces to talk about RFIDs because they're very important. And I have historically taken a position, I'm not opposed to RFIDs. You want to use them in terms of inventory control. You want to use them with physical objects, be my guest. There's no privacy issue. But the minute that RFID is linked to personally identifiable information, you have a data linkage, then you have to engage in protections. It's very, very important. Once you start putting RFID chips on identifiers, such as a driver's license or a passport, something that can, we have the enhanced driver's license, something that can be linked back to you, even if your identifiers aren't accessible, but a number that then links that back. Any form of data linkage to an RFID is very potentially privacy invasive. We must address that. We will address that. We have Philip Taysom here, who flew here last night from the UK, from England, to kindly show us what he's going to be talking about in terms of his company, Paratech. They have, when we were talking to the government about this on the enhanced driver's license with the RFID, I was very concerned because the only time you need the chip to work is when you're crossing the border. All the other times when you're driving around, it doesn't have to be on. So I kept saying, find some way to turn this off. Well, you're going to hear about this from Philip Taysom from Paratech, who has a company who is doing specifically that. He has developed an on-off switch. It is amazing, and we need you to hear about it, and we need you to tell everybody about it. So we just need to get the word out. I'm sorry, I'm sure I am leaving out some people. My time was up 5 minutes ago. Jeff Kirk, who is amazing and has single-handedly organized this event, is going to kill me if I don't stop. So I am going to wrap this up with one final comment. And I'm going to ask you to indulge my whim. Indulge in my vision of privacy for the future, even if it's just for a moment. Imagine that you won't have to ask for it. It'll just be there, privacy, permeating through all the technology we use, all the practices we engage in, already embedded into the design. So you don't have to worry about it, it's there. Remember, the default rules. Whatever the default is, that's what will prevail. So my goal is to make privacy the default. I know it's a dream. I think we can do it. I think we have to do it. Yes, we must. So let's just make it a self-fulfilling prophecy and engage in this whim and make it a reality, because the future of privacy depends on it, and we must have privacy. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.